no political party has your best interest in mind. No political
No.
party really has the end-all agenda of you experiencing the abundant life that you were created
That's
to
right.
live other than Jesus. And so if we're really going to find hope in this election season and, gosh, even so much more in our life, I pray that our listeners would remember, okay, or maybe come to at least tip their hat to maybe there is a better way that's bigger than this whole political thing, and then it's in the way of Jesus. Welcome to the Hope in Real Life podcast with Jason Gore. Our team is passionate and committed to bringing you more hope in the everyday, real areas of your life. If this conversation and content is valuable for you, please do us a favor. Like, subscribe, and even share. You never know how valuable it could be to share a little bit of hope with someone else. Let's get the conversation started. We are here with our good friend, Brother Léonce Crump. Welcome to the show.
What's up, my guy?
We are here today to talk about something that, man, we're who knows when this is going to get dropped, but heading into a political season. This episode is somehow supposed to revolve around how in the world can we find hope in the midst of a political season that is undoubtedly going to leave many wanting more. And so, but before we jump in, Léonce, just in case there is someone who's listening for the first time, doesn't know anything about you, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Léonce Crump, pastor of Renovation Church, founded with my wife a few years back, former NFL player and wrestler.
Yep.
And I love walking through gardens, which has become a point of being bullied at this juncture in my life.
This is an odd time to interrupt and drop in hey, if you're interested in walking through botanical gardens, you can check out season 1, episode whatever with Léonce. But go back in the archives.
So that's who I am. I'm a gentle bull.
Oh, my goodness. All right, so here we are. We're ready to talk about politics. Let's just jump right in. What is it that comes to your mind when you think the word politics?
Now, division.
Yeah.
When I hear the word, the very first thing that comes to my mind these days is division, divide, divisive.
Yeah.
And it's really the way that the stage has been set for us to navigate the political world here in the U.S.
Yeah. It's funny because at the end of the day, like if the root word of politics is polis, which in the Greek essentially means like, how do we live in a society?
Yeah.
You would think that the goal would be for everybody to work towards the best end all goal.
Correct.
And you just said divisiveness. Like you can't help but turn on the news and see like, it doesn't feel like it's a group of people trying to figure out what's best. It feels like politics is about, hey, there's side A and there's side B, and we're in a fight.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And the only way that we win is if my side wins. And there's very little conversation, actually, about what's best for the people overall.
Well, the conversation has died. And anyone who believes that our political system is built for the best interests of the people that it's supposed to serve, unfortunately, is not paying attention. Now, there was a time, in fact, we were talking about this briefly before the show, there was a time in the late 70s, early 80s, where, and let's talk about Christians for a second, because that's ultimately at the root of the problem and the solution, if possible. But in any church in America in the late 70s and 80s, you could find an equal number of Democrats and Republicans in that church, 50-50, sitting next to each other, worshiping together, discipling each other, raising families with each other. And it was probably the last time where there was a sense of we're trying to get to the same place, but we just believe we go about it differently. You want to spend more conservatively. I want to spend more liberally. You want to focus on the macro geopolitical issues and economic issues. I want to focus on the micro issues and poor people. And so there was a sense where you are not my enemy. We just have different ideas.
Right.
And then over the last 30 to 40 years, there's been an evolution where now we can't have a different idea. If you think differently than me, if you see the same issue differently than me, well, you're my enemy. We don't just have different ideas. And I think part of that is because the polar ends of the political spectrum, as far left as you want to go to like recycling urine and drinking it, and as far right, this is a real thing.
It is
It's
a real thing. I've heard about. I know.
And as far right as you want to go to, rabid, unchecked capitalism that leaves people who never had a shot behind. Right. Those are the voices that are actually controlling the narrative. And there's a bunch of us in the middle that are just trying to figure out how to be good Christians and good citizens in a world that's feel like it's being pulled apart.
Yeah. And I want to say this real fast. I know, so two things could happen right away in this conversation. And Haley, who does a phenomenal job kind of helping oversee this project, she even said, hey, politics kind of isn't my thing. I don't even know if I would listen to this episode, but I know a lot. So number one, if that's you, I would say, stay tuned. I think there's going to be something here for you. The second thing I would say, I know we have a lot of listeners that maybe wouldn't even call themselves Christian. This episode, we are going to be intentionally focusing on a healthy Christian perspective in the midst of this. And so if you're like, why are they talking so much? I would say also just stick with this, because I think we'd all have to admit, like, what we see right now isn't working.
That's right.
And so, man, if there was a third way, if there was another way, and so just entertain this with us for 25, 30 minutes, however we are. I think we're going to maybe unpack some things that'll be helpful. Now, you just said the divisiveness, and we don't know how to really love one another, work together if we have different perspectives. Just for a minute, though, and I think it's worth recognizing in today's world, that's not just when it comes to politics.
No, absolutely not. No, it's with everything.
Right.
Everything now is me versus you. Yeah. Everything is a fight. Everything is putting your flag in the ground and coming out victorious. Yeah. And that's not supposed to be the end goal of human flourishing. Period. Right. Certainly not supposed to be the end goal of politics. And I think that's why there's value in kind of focusing in on this from a Christian perspective. Because I would say, I didn't grow up in church. I didn't grow up as a Christian. So for our listeners out there, I was a part-time Catholic for the first 16, 17 years of my life. But I wanted the Christians
in Louisiana.
Yes, in
Louisiana.
Louisiana.
Part-time Catholic in Louisiana.
Well, you may not have known this. A little side street here, but Louisiana doesn't have counties. We have parishes. That's how Catholic Louisiana is. Okay. We don't have a county. They've divided the state up into Catholic parishes. And always, even though I wasn't one, I wanted the Christians to be what they said they are. Yeah. Because if it was true, then everything was different. Yeah. And so that's why I think for us, approaching it from that perspective does have far-reaching implications, even if you wouldn't call yourself a follower of the way of Jesus, because we're supposed to be the people who know how to do this well in spite of all of the swirling circumstances around us.
Well, in fact, one of Jesus's last prayers, and I just want to say this, and do not hear any singular sentence that I say in this podcast or take a sentence of it and reproduce it somewhere else and then say, that's what Jason believes, and that's what Léonce believes, because we got to address some tough things. But one of the last things that Jesus prayed for on earth was for the unity of his people.
That's right. John 17.
So that's what Christians should be working towards, being the answer to Jesus' prayer. And so I would argue, if you see any leader on any side representing something look, this doesn't mean that there's not moments where you have to stand up. Pardon me. Cough button. We need that. If you need to, stand up and be a strong leader, and there's going to be some opposition, but man, there's a way to do that in a loving, unifying, empathetic way. And if you see a leader that's not doing that, you can't tie that's the way of Jesus or that's the way of the church to that person.
Yeah, that's right. And I would say it's not even the way of decent humanity.
Right.
Right? Because at the end of the day, Christian or not, we should want total flourishing for our society because we benefit from it too. Right. Let's just say it completely selfishly. Yeah. We all benefit when everything in society is flourishing. Yeah. And right now it's very much a different story. Yeah.
And gosh, I hate to keep going back to scripture, but I mean, you see that in Deuteronomy. I mean, you see it all throughout scripture. You see it in Jeremiah.
Yep.
If you're in this area where you don't want to be, he doesn't say grit your teeth until you can get out. He doesn't say overturn it. He says marry, have children,
That's right. Build
plant
houses.
gardens, build houses, live your life in such a way that the city around you will prosper, because in its prosperity, you will find prosperity.
That's exactly right. As the city goes, so do you.
Yeah.
Period.
I think one other thing that's good to recognize, one thing that's helped me, is it's possible. I would even say highly likely, but to at least allow ourselves to go to the place to where it's possible that the system, the political system that we are set up in, and again, I'm not anti-politics by any stretch. I think they serve a great purpose for our society. But I think just being open to the fact that our system could be set up to have us spending more energy fighting with one another than coming to a unifying place. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I was taught a long time ago to always follow the money. Follow the money.
Yeah.
There's more money in medicine than healthy living.
Yes.
There's more money in doctor's bills than eating vegetables.
Yeah.
And there's more money in controversy than in cohesion. Period. And so, when you think about kind of the root idols of American society, it's mammon, right? And mammon being
maybe not in the literal sense, but
but being in the what Jesus meant when he said mammon, it was wealth and power and everything that it affords,
right.
And worshiping that. It's mammon and it's sex. And so when you look at these kind of root idols that govern so much of our movies, our media, the way we function, what's on magazine covers, the Met Gala. If you didn't see that, don't go watch it.
We won't put a link to it here.
We will not link to that. But the point I'm making is, controversy sells. And makes money, and that's why we're reliving 2020 right now.
Yeah.
In this current political race, because it was salacious and unfortunately, if we're not energized by the way of Jesus, then we're going to be energized by those things, and in some small way or another. And so, yes, I believe that there are segments of our system that are set up for the flourishing of people. But I also believe equally countermeasured to that, as you said, that the system is set up to keep us divided, because God forbid these poor folks that I used to pastor in Appalachia, in Sevierville, Tennessee, where I live down the street from Dolly Parton. That's another conversation for another time.
A little different than Atlanta.
Well, and I was going to say, not that much. God forbid these poor folks from Appalachia connect with these poor folks in the hood and realize that they are actually living the same narrative, and that they have been systematically and strategically over time separated to believe that their stories are very, very different. But I'm telling you, as a pastor who pastored in Appalachia and who pastored in urban Atlanta, I was facing the exact same issues, the exact same attitudes, the exact same struggles, the exact same challenges. God forbid those people get together, because they would literally be able to wrest the power from the powerful and reshape society. And so we got to keep those people separated. God forbid black folks and white folks get together in a church, right? Because as long as we can keep the narrative that Republicans want to hurt black people and Democrats are using them in order to, give them programs and keep their votes. And as long as we can keep that narrative, then there's no synergy and there's no possibility to actually see change.
Right. Yeah. So let's ask this question then. What is the Christian community's role when it comes to politics?
Yeah. Primarily, it is to live out the way of Jesus in a subversive, beautiful, inviting manner. I'll give you two examples. There's a great book by Rodney Stark, and we can link to that, I'm sure, in the notes. It is a fat read. So if you're not a readable or a reader, get Audible. I'm not sure if it's on Audible, but there's one example he shares that has always struck me, and I've brought this primarily to my friends and family who lean right. I've brought this to them multiple times. What do you do when you can't count on the political power to facilitate the life you want to have, right? So the early Christians, it was Nero or Trajan. Like neither one of them were working. I mean,
Right.
Nero lit his garden with Christians on fire. And so they're
Tough to get behind that.
Tough to get behind
Right.
that. You know, like, this is my platform. I'm going to light you up. But those of you who survive, you will prosper.
Yeah.
But what do you do when you live in a society where you don't have any political power, where your vote really doesn't matter at all?
Yeah.
You live in such a way that from the bottom up, it begins to transform society. So here's one example. Christians, the term burning bridges, actually came from a massive plague that swept through the early Mesopotamian world. And they were fleeing the cities and actually burning the bridges on the way out so that the sick could not cross over.
Right.
Christians were going back into these plague-infested areas and taking care of the sick and dying. And what you find both biblically and extra-biblically is that when Christians live the way of Jesus, empowered by the Holy Spirit, that society begins to change, not because they have power, but because their influence, their love, their mercy, the way that they seek those on the margins and seek to serve them and take care of them, it begins to turn the hearts of the people.
Yeah.
That's what happens. Same thing happened in the Old Testament with Daniel. I'm actually working on a book right now called Among Kings, how to be a whole citizen in a politically divided world. And the idea of that sprung from reading the book of Daniel, where I realized that this man was taken in exile into a country he did not choose.
Just in case you're listening, you don't know the book of Daniel, a book in the Bible.
Oh, it's a book in the Bible, yeah. Yeah, you should read it. It's crazy, though. Stop at chapter 6.
Before he starts having dreams.
Please stop at chapter 6. But in the first 6 chapters, you see that that he serves 4 different administrations.
Yep.
Think about that. 4 different administrations. 3 different kingdoms. And none of them were working for the good of his people. How did he do that? How did he do that and keep his Christian fidelity? There's a lesson in that for us. And eventually we see little flecks of heart change even in those political leaders in the Old Testament because of the way Daniel lived around them and exemplified the way of God.
Yeah, you see that and you think, okay, maybe there is something to that. And this is why when people ask me, interpersonally, hey, what are your thoughts on politics, Republican Party, Democratic Party? And it's not that, look, I love America. I love our country. Without a doubt. America. Love it. But when it comes down to how much energy should I put, at the end of the day, we got 24 hours in a day. We have way less emotional energy than 24 hours.
And per our last time, we should be sleeping 8 of those.
We should be sleeping 8 of those. I'm still failing miserably at that. I'm doing better.
Come on, big guy.
I'm doing better. I know. I got work to do. Hope in Real Life family, I want to take a moment and let you know about a resource that we have for you for your own personal development, spiritual enrichment, and really a way for you to find a bit more hope in real life. We have a tool for you called the Hope in Real Life app. It offers things like parenting tips, financial resources, marriage insights. If you're looking for it, there's even Bible reading plans in there. And there's a community where you can even share prayer requests and know that someone is praying for you for whatever it is that you have going on in your life. It's available right now in the Apple App Store or in Google Play. You can search Hope in Real Life in both stores, or you can use the download link that is in the show notes. Remember, tomorrow can be better than today, and hope is possible even in real life. To say we got 16. We got 16 hours, and we definitely don't have 16 good hours of emotional energy. So do you want to, is it more beneficial for your community, for your state, for your country, for your church, for your city, for you to invest a large portion of that time investing in a system or hoping in a system that ultimately is not going to get it done, which every hour or minute that you put into driving that platform is minutes that you don't have to necessarily live out exactly what you just talked about. And so for me, it's really a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
Like, where am I going to invest my time? And to use your words, like if I'm really convicted about something, am I going to spend a whole lot of time chasing my algorithm on social media and making a bunch of arguments, or am I going to spend my time actually living that out? And to use your story, to use your metaphor, going back across where there's no bridges and actually making a difference myself.
That's right. I mean, I think you're exactly right. And the perspective, I think, is so clear. We have a finite amount of time, and to invest our hope, and I think that was the key word there, we have to stop hoping in politics and political leaders. They come and they go. They rise and they fall. The Bible literally says, sorry for quoting the Bible so much today, guys. I am a preacher. You have to forgive me. The Bible literally says God raises up kings and he tears them down, right? And so every ruler, every leader we have ever had and ever will have is in a temporary assignment.
Right.
And so for us to throw our whole hope and our whole heart and all of our energy behind a temporary leader who will change over, if not in 4 years, in 8. Yeah. And that leader will spend the next 4 to 8 years trying to undo everything that the leader did that came. Like, why would we throw ourselves at that? Yeah. When instead we can be living in such a way that people have to ask us for the hope that we have. Now, I'm not a proponent of total disengagement. That's not what I'm saying.
Not at all.
That's not what I'm saying at all. What I am saying is that as you engage, invest wisely with your time, and realize that your hope doesn't rise and fall. In November, we're going to have a president.
Yep.
We're going to have a new president, or we're going to have the same president. That changes nothing for how I live before then and how I will live after. Yeah. I'm going to love Jesus. I'm going to serve my church. I'm going to love my family. I'm going to take care of my kids. I'm going to invest in human flourishing. I'm going to continue to give to compassion. I'm going to continue to try to make the world a better place, because at the end of the day, whoever is sitting in that seat, that does not determine how I live my life. And the day that it does, we kind of already lost the battle.
Yeah. Let's hit on this, because I know there's some listeners out there that will say, oh, but it does, because it could actually change a law, or it could change how our tax dollars are spent.
Mm-hmm.
Cough button. We, I think it's worth recognizing, and I'm just going to go here for a minute. All right. And this is where somebody takes one sentence and blows something out of the way, but it's fine. We got to deal with it. To pretend like, if you want to vote one way or the other, or you want to elevate one party over another, great. That's what the system's intact for. But to pretend like if you want to see one candidate move into office because you live and believe, which I do too, that abortion is murder.
Yeah.
I think it's, and now look, I have friends and family that have had abortions.
Same.
And so much empathy
but
for
that doesn't make it not what it is.
It doesn't make it not what it is. But to pretend like if you vote just for that and that's what you stake your life in, to pretend like everything in that political party perfectly matches up. I'm not saying with your personal preferences, because it might.
Perfectly with the way of Jesus.
But does it perfectly match up with the way of Jesus? Come on.
Yeah.
We got to be smarter than that.
Yeah.
Or to say, no. I believe that the Democratic Party does a better job of caring for the poor, which is something that we're called to do through Scripture.
That's the soundbite that they're going to take.
Which it is. That's right. They're going to take. Yeah, I'm going to get blown up. I'm going to get blown up.
Jason Gore said he believes the Democratic Party.
Yeah,
does
so do what you may. Take the whole thing in context, but then to pretend like everything that political party does fully represents the way of Jesus is a stretch at best.
Well, it is. It's not even being honest.
Right.
That's the thing. It's not being honest. And the hard part in many of these conversations for me, because we have such a diverse church, and so going back to COVID, I'll come right back.
Look, I'm going to go soft here for a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everybody that's a Democrat is pro-abortion. I'm not saying that no one who's a Republican cares for the poor. That's not what I'm saying.
And that's not going soft. That's true.
Right.
Because I know what are called blue dog Democrats that are anti-abortion.
Yep.
And I know Republicans that are deeply concerned for the poor and for our fiscal policies concerning them.
Yep.
So that's just
right.
And those are throwbacks
Right.
from the 70s and 80s that we're talking about.
But here's what's really interesting, though. How many of those are actually going to have an opportunity to run for president?
Well, they're not. Well, they're not.
Right.
Can we come back to that?
Yes.
Can we put a pin in that and come back to that? I definitely want to come back to that. They're not. But what I was going to say is the challenge in this conversation that I've had many, many times, and I'll go back to COVID, is when my right-leaning family and friends, and again, I'll go here. Like my in-laws are staunch Trump supporters, staunch election deniers, whole thing. Yeah. It was stolen. Like I don't care if he gets indicted. We're still voting for him. Like that's where they are, and I love them. And most of the time we can have decent dialogue. And I have friends who are staunch Democrats. All Republicans are evil, and they don't care about people. And yes, I hate abortion, but we've got these 17 other issues. And the struggle that I've had, going back again to COVID, is when the government mandated you have to wear masks if you're going to gather. My Republican friends stopped coming to our church. And my in-laws said, well, we're not going to do that. And I thought to myself, well, I thought we were supposed to obey the government. Like, y'all are like, well, the government said I can have my guns, and the government said, but now we're not. And then when the government stopped mandating masks, we pulled the mask.
Right.
And many of my left-leaning friends stopped coming to church.
You don't care about people anymore.
You don't care about people.
You don't care if people die.
You won't care if people die. And I'm like, but I thought we were supposed to follow what the government said.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so in both cases, I thought we were supposed to follow what the government said.
Right.
Well, only when it's convenient to what I want.
Yeah.
And no one is willing to be honest. And the few people who are willing to be honest, I'll go back to what we put a pin in, they're never going to get a shot.
Yeah.
Because they don't represent the narrative that is being pitched.
Right.
In fact, most of you probably don't know this about me. So new layers to Léonce today. I did a semester in law school. I have a master's degree in criminal justice with a focus on case law because I really believed that my future was to practice law.
That fun fact is more masculine than walking through botanical gardens.
Misogyny is not in 2024.
That's fair. Whole nother episode. You're right.
But I really believed that was my future. And so I went down that path. I thought I was going to practice law until I was 35. And this was my whole plan. So this tells you how crazy my brain is. From a child, I was going to practice law until I was 35. Then I was going to enter politics. And I was going to run for president at 45. And that is how I was going to change the world. And I had a mentor.
You got about a week till you're 45.
I know. Well, I think I could win, but I think 10 years from now there might be a shot, but that's a different conversation too. But I think I can win. But I had a mentor of mine, and this is why I would never do it. He was in politics, and he said, Léonce, if you're going to go into this arena, you can compromise some of your values and maybe get something done. You can compromise all of your values. He's talking about my Christian values. Right. All of your values and definitely get something, though not everything, done. Or you can refuse to compromise and get nothing done. And that was a turning point for me because I realized that the system is actually no longer set up for ideas. It's set up for tribes. And if you disagree with parts of the tribe that you're a part of, well, then you have no voice and you have no influence and you have no authority. And so there's actually not room for people who are quote unquote blue dog Democrats to actually move the needle. Right. And there's not room for Republicans who are concerned about the way we spend our money on the military versus education to move the needle. In fact, last thing I'll say, I'll be your cough button. People forget this, but you have a solid memory, so I suspect you'll remember this. In 2008, when Barack Hussein Obama was running for president, Hillary Clinton eviscerated him. Do you remember why? She said he was not a real Democrat. He's not a real Democrat because Obama at that time was a church man. Yeah. And vocally pro-traditional marriage and vocally anti-abortion, running as a Democrat. And some magical confluence of things happened that allowed him to win that election. And I actually have a buddy who's a 20-plus year political science professor. Here's what he said about Obama. He said Obama term one, he was a 1980s moderate Republican in his fiscal spending, in his war policy, in how he handled terrorism. He said that was all very Republican of him. But what happened? Well, the world shifted. Okay. He knew rather that he was not going to get reelected unless he appealed to the part of his party that he formerly disagreed with. Right. And so now all of a sudden, he's pro same-sex marriage. And all of a sudden, he's pro, and I'll use their language, women's reproductive rights. All of a sudden, he shifted, he's compromised what were values so that he can stay in office. And in his mind, well, I know I'm compromising on these things, but it's so I can get these other things done. Yeah. And that's how the game is rigged, man. That's how it's played. And so I remind people all the time, you forget that Hillary Clinton destroyed him in debates, in articles, in interviews, and her whole platform was he's not a real Democrat. Right. Because this is what Democrats believe. Democrats believe in women's reproductive rights. Democrats believe that love is love and you can love anyone. And he doesn't believe those things, so he's not a real Democrat.
And here's what's interesting, as if being a real Democrat or a real Republican is the end-all goal for us.
Well, and that might be a part too.
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking, because at the end of the day, yes, we remember who Barack Obama is. We remember who Hillary Clinton is right now. And you might be able to do this, but I would even challenge for others. Can you name every president of the United States we've ever had? No.
Absolutely not.
There's not one listener that can hear my voice right now that doesn't know who Jesus is.
That's right.
And the reason why is because there is a third way.
Yes.
There is a better way. It seems like they could never get elected. And so that's what I hope our listeners get out of this episode is like, hey, I'm not saying don't be a Republican. I'm not saying being a Democrat. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, no political party has your best interest in mind. No political party really has the end-all agenda of you experiencing the abundant life that you were created to live other than Jesus. And so if we're really going to find hope in this election season and, gosh, even so much more in our life, I pray that our listeners would remember, okay, or maybe come to at least tip their hat to maybe there is a better way that's bigger than this whole political thing, and then it's in the way of Jesus.
Well, and it's got to be. It's got to be. Because, again, if you're listening and you're following the way of Jesus, well, the Bible says that this is not your home. Yeah. The Bible says that you are a citizen of another place. Yeah. The Bible literally says that Jesus' kingdom is not a kingdom of this world. Yeah. And that we are simply passing. I can go on and on and on and on. There's a beautiful thing that's coming where heaven is going to kiss earth, right? Yep. And that's Revelation 21. Heaven's going to kiss earth. We're going to have this brand new reality, this new heavens, this new earth, this sin-free thing that is coming. No political leader is going to get us there. Yeah. No political party is going to get us there. That is not where our hope is. and it can't be because it's going to fail. And that's where your frustration is. Yeah. Can I say that bluntly?
I think so.
Your frustration right now, listener, is through multiple or even singular election cycles, you hoped that this person would be what you believed they would be. And it turned out that they weren't. Yeah. And they couldn't get as much done as you thought they could. And so now you hope for the next one. Yeah. The next one's not going to be able to do it either. Only Jesus. And I'll finish with this and be done unless you ask me some more questions. But I tell all our people all the time, stop looking at the elephant and the donkey and follow the lamb. Yeah. Follow the lamb. And that will lead you to the abundant life that God promised.
Hope in Real Life family, we just want to take a moment and let you know about a resource that is available to you. I know a lot of our listeners aren't necessarily active in a church, might not even be a Christian. We are still thankful that you're spending time with us. However, we do get asked regularly, how can we find out more about your church or even just about this Jesus guy? And so if that is you, I want you to know you can tune in to gethope.tv. We have live services on Saturday, 4:15 p.m. and 6 p.m., or on Sunday at 9:30 a.m. or 11:15 a.m. Those are Eastern Standard Times. If you can't tune in during those times, we will drop our YouTube link as well as our podcast link down in the show notes. We would love to have you join in with us. Let's keep sharing some hope. My last question was, how can communities come together to foster hope during this election season? I think we'll end. We'll end with that. I want to be in all this. I want to be clear. We're not talking about. Neither one of us, I believe, would say so. Pull out of being engaged with politics at all. I would say I think you should vote. I think you should vote. You have an active responsibility as a citizen. But let's just recognize how it can shape us and actually pull back from our hope or lead us to putting our hope into the wrong thing.
Yeah, and stop watching the 24-hour news cycle.
There you go. All right. Tell me one more time. Next summer, you've got a book coming out.
Yes.
What's your working title?
Among Kings.
Among Kings.
Subtitle, How to Be a Whole Citizen in a Politically Divided World.
And so we'll be talking about that, I'm sure, again. And I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with another couple of these conversations as we get closer to the election time.
Yeah.
Léonce, thank you so much for being here, as always. I think we're
going
to get you out of here and go get you some barbecue.
Oh, beef ribs await.
Hope in Real Life family, thank you for tuning in. Listen, do the world a favor, all right? Engage this content, but share it. Other people need to experience and understand there is a bigger hope out there than just what's being thrown at us by the news. Take an opportunity, share this with other people. You never know how much of a difference it can actually make in someone's life. Love you guys. See you on the next episode. Let's keep sharing hope. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hope in Real Life podcast. If this content was valuable for you, don't forget, like, subscribe, share. You never know how important it could be to bring a little hope into someone else's life. There's even a place here for you to comment. We would love to hear from you and hear your feedback. Until next time, let's keep sharing hope.